Good evening, everybody. Today is February 3rd, 2021, and the time is 6 p.m. This is the time and place for the Public Works Virtual Committee meeting for the proposed traffic calming measures along Adams Street between Palmer Avenue and Stanford Drive. My name is Edward Hiddy. I'm an Assistant Director of Public Works City Engineer, and I'll be conducting the meeting tonight. Due to the evolving situation with the COVID-19 novel coronavirus and health recommendation from the LA County Health Department, the Public Works meeting for the proposed traffic calming measures along Adams Street between Palmer Avenue and Stanford Drive will be available to the public electronically. Due to the social distancing requirements, the public will not be able to attend the meeting in person. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. The meeting can be viewed live by joining the WebEx link at www.glendaleca.gov/Adams. Or you can use Glendale's YouTube channel at youtube.com/MyGlendale. The information are displayed on the screen. If you're using an iOS device, iPhone or iPad, you must download and install WebEx app prior to the meeting in order to view the meeting. However, anyone who has connected to the WebEx via phone will need to drop from the WebEx to dial to public line at 818-937-8100. Should you have comments or questions during our public comment segment. American Sign Language interpretation is primarily available on YouTube and GTV6. Limited access is available on WebEx. For those who don't have access to a computer or the internet, the phone number to call in and listen to the meeting is 213-306-3065. And you may need to dial the access code 126-580-3444. For public comments and or questions during this meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Comments and questions will be addressed by the appropriate person during the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded, both video and audio, and the recording will become a part of the public records. Notification of this meeting was accomplished by the use of postcards, which were mailed to property owners located within 500 feet of the project limits and posted on the city's website at www.glendalepwprojects.com. The meeting will proceed as follows. The project manager will give a PowerPoint presentation covering the project limits, project description, and project schedule. Viewers or callers wish to make public comments, please call at 818-937-8100. Please provide your full name and address. Callers will have 3 minutes to make their comments or ask questions. There will be no debates or discussion during the meeting. The staff will be submitting your questions and comments to the appropriate staff after the meeting. Questions and answers will be posted at the city's website in the next 2 weeks. Viewers or callers will be given the opportunity to submit their follow-up questions or comments within 24 hours after the conclusion of the meeting. Any additional questions or comments can be emailed to the contact person's email address provided in the postcard. The meeting will be concluded within 5 minutes following the conclusion of receiving any calls. And again, those information on how to view the meeting, participate in the meeting, all call in are displayed provided on the screen right in front of you. And now the next will be Pastor Casanova, our principal traffic engineer, who will be giving a PowerPoint presentation pertaining to this project. Go ahead, Pastor.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone in attendance tonight. As Mr. Hidi mentioned, my name is Pastor Casanova, and I am the Principal Traffic Engineer in the City of Glendale Department of Public Works. We sincerely appreciate you being here to listen and participate in this community meeting. Today, we are here to discuss potential traffic calming measures for Adams Street. The information we will be presenting will include an overview of the project background, a review of the location and existing conditions. We'll review the engineering studies that were conducted, as well as go over state and local standards, and present the study findings as well as alternatives for consideration. First, the Public Works staff received requests for multi-way stop controls and traffic calming measures on Adams Street between Palmer Avenue and Stanford Drive to address concerns regarding speeding and pedestrian safety. Staff evaluated the request and performed the required traffic engineering studies and identified potential traffic calming alternatives for consideration. Which leads us to today's virtual community outreach meeting, in which we'll present the findings as well as receive your feedback. On the screen is a vicinity map of the area showing Adams Street between Palmer Avenue and Stanford Drive. Adams Street is situated between Glendale Avenue and Brand Boulevard to the west or to the left of the screen, and Verdugo Road and the 2 freeway to the east on the right of the screen, the City of Glendale and City of Los Angeles boundary line near Vincent Way to the south on the lower part of the screen, and Chevy Chase Drive and Palmer Avenue to the north on the top part of the exhibit. This exhibit shows a zoomed-in view of the same section of Adams Street between Palmer Avenue and Stanford Drive. And the same image with the satellite image superimposed, showing the residential context of Adams Street. We now look at a street view of Adams Street looking northbound, and this picture would be taken standing south of Scofield Drive. As we can see, there's a double yellow center line on Adams Street. There's on-street parking on both sides of Adams Street, the east and west sides, and there's white painted edge lines shadowing the parking lanes. This is now a view of southbound standing just north of Scofield Drive intersection. In today's presentation, we'll be referring to a couple of terms of terminology that are important to clarify before we get started. Multi-way stop controls in the context of today's presentation will refer to an intersection that is controlled by stop signs for all traffic approaching the intersection. The term traffic calming measures refers to traffic control enhancements that encourage drivers to comply with the speed limit. The engineering studies that were conducted by staff to address the request consisted of 3 multi-way stop control warrant analyses. The analyses followed the State of California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices Guidelines and Standards. The 3 intersections along this corridor that were studied for multi-way stop controls were Adams Street and Scofield Drive, Adams Street and Cornell Drive, and Adams Street and Princeton Drive. A separate traffic calming study following the Glendale Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program guidelines was also conducted, and that was included for the street segment of Adams Street between Palmer Avenue and Stanford Drive, the segment we're here to discuss today. As we get started in reviewing the details of the study, the first thing we want to take a look at are the existing traffic controls along the corridor. There are existing multi-way stop intersections currently at the intersections of Adams Street and Palmer Avenue, which are depicted by the red circles in the top part of the screen, and Adams Street and Stanford Drive, depicted by another red circle at the bottom part of the screen. The studies that were conducted at 3 locations, as mentioned in the previous slide, were at Scofield Drive, Cornell Drive, and Princeton Drive, which are depicted on the screen with bubble notes 1, 2, and 3. The methodology of the studies that were conducted, particularly the multi-way stop studies, followed the guidelines and standards outlined in the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices to determine if multi-way stop controls are warranted at 3 intersections. The California MUTCD provides state standards and guidance and direction for all traffic control devices that are installed on public right-of-way, including stop signs. The multi-way stop studies for the 3 intersections included an analysis of collision history data, traffic count data, intersection geometry and visibility, as well as engineering field observations by staff. The multi-way stop study results, again, that followed the California MUTCD multi-way stop warrants, showed that the criteria were not met at the 3 analyzed intersections. Again, the intersections being Adams and Scofield, Cornell, and Princeton Drives. As such, as a result of this study, the multi-way stop controls are not recommended at the 3 intersections under these studies and at this time. In now reviewing the second study, or second part of the study mentioned previously, the traffic calming study, this exhibit on the map shows the same segment of Adams Street between Palmer and Scofield Drive and shows the location that the speed and volume traffic count data was taken for the traffic calming study. And that location, as you see on the circle on the screen, a red circle on the screen, is situated between Cornell Drive and Yale Drive, which is approximately in the middle of the segment and likely to be the point of the highest speeds along the corridor. The traffic calming study in itself followed the procedures outlined in the city's adopted neighborhood traffic calming program guidelines and performed a staff performed the traffic calming study along this segment of Adams Street between Palmer and Stanford Drive. The study included an analysis of the street classification, 24-hour speed and volume traffic counts, field observations, street dimensions and profile, as well as a review of the area fire response routes. Adams Street does meet the required street classification, traffic volume, and speed criteria stipulated in the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program guidelines for consideration of traffic calming measures. Staff also evaluated the feasibility of speed humps. Since the traffic calming criteria were met, staff again evaluated the feasibility of speed humps. And unfortunately, this segment of Adams Street does not qualify for speed humps for 2 basic reasons. Is that, first of all, it is on the Glendale Fire Department, the Glendale Fire Department has identified this section of Adams Street as a primary emergency response route. And secondly, the block lengths on Adams Street between Palmer and Stanford do not meet the minimum block length of 500 feet for installation of speed humps based on the criteria stipulated in the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program. As such, since speed humps were determined to be not feasible, alternate traffic calming measures were evaluated, and we'll be looking at that in subsequent slides, particularly the traffic circle concept. Before we get to that concept, we're going to go through a couple of slides that shows the existing traffic calming measures currently on Adams Street. In this exhibit, you will see speed radar signs or speed feedback signs, and that is situated on the rightmost side of the screen. There is a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit sign, and right above it, there's an electronic sign with a panel that indicates your speed. This speed feedback sign is located just north of Yale Drive, and typically how these speed radars function is that they display the driver's speed up to a preset maximum and make the drivers aware if they are traveling above the speed limit. This is now looking in the opposite direction, southbound, showing the second speed radar sign located just south of Cornell Drive. And again, the intent of the speed radar signs is to make drivers aware if they are traveling above the speed limit and encourage them to comply. This exhibit will show that there are white edge lines on Adams Street, and in the aerial image, it's a little difficult to see them, so superimposed in PowerPoint are now the white lines showing just to bring out the existing locations of the 4-inch white edge lines. The 4-inch white edge lines, together with the double yellow center line, create a visual narrowing effect on Adams Street to, again, encourage slower speeds. Now getting into the traffic circle concept, staff reviewed developing a traffic circle concept at Adams Street and Scofield Drive intersection. Along with the traffic circle concept is a multi-way stop control is also recommended to allow traffic to maneuver the traffic circle effectively. Why Scofield Drive? Scofield Drive, when compared to other streets along this, other side streets along this segment, is wider compared, for example, to Cornell Drive, Yale Drive, and Princeton Drive. This allows more room to fit the traffic circle concept at the intersection. We will also be covering challenges that we're facing, and the traffic circle concept will show that there is a measurable loss of on-street parking spaces, as well as left turns from Scofield Drive onto southbound Adams Street for trucks, single unit trucks that are 30 feet or larger, for example, a FedEx truck or a UPS delivery truck or larger, will have difficulty or really will not be able to maneuver that turn. The traffic circle concept implementation is proposed to be broken down into 2 phases. Phase 1 would be a pilot program and would implement a temporary traffic circle with temporary traffic circle features and include standard stop sign or stop controlled approaches for Adams Street northbound and southbound, as well as the respective striping. Upon implementation of the Phase 1 pilot program, we would move to the evaluation period. So the evaluation period would allow time for public works staff to evaluate, as well as for the community to interact with the traffic circle and provide feedback for the operation. Following the evaluation period, we would have a follow-up community meeting in which staff would present the engineering evaluation portion, and we would receive additional community feedback. Phase 2, which would be a more permanent traffic circle implementation, would be contingent completely on the Phase 1 findings and feedback. Assuming that the Phase 1 moves forward and there's a positive evaluation period, a positive engineering evaluation as well as community feedback, we would then implement the permanent traffic circle with more permanent features such as raised curb, and this Phase 2 component would also include installation of curb ramps, of a new curb ramp on Adams Street on the west side, as well as crosswalk striping. The stop signs on Adams, or the stop approaches implemented as part of Phase 1, would remain in Phase 2, as well as the striping. On the screen is a satellite image of the existing conditions of the Adams Street and Scofield Drive intersection, with the Scofield Drive approach controlled by a stop sign approach, and Adams Street is free flow without a stop sign approach. As seen on the image, there is existing on-street parking on both sides of the street, the east and the west sides of the street, and a double yellow center line with the edge line markings. Before, the first and foremost thing that we, that staff engineers look at in evaluating the traffic circle concept are the vehicle turning maneuvers. And particularly in this image on the screen shows the left turns that were studied for passenger vehicles. The blue image shows a passenger vehicle making the left turn, a southbound left turn from Adams Street to Scofield Drive and able to maneuver around a traffic circle, as well as a vehicle on Scofield Drive making a turn onto southbound Adams Street and being able to maneuver. So this shows that for passenger vehicles, this concept works. In this slide, we evaluate now the single unit trucks, again, similar to a UPS or FedEx box truck. And a truck on Adams Street would be able to maneuver around the circle and make a left turn into Scofield Drive. However, as we look at the same type of trucks, the single unit 30-foot long trucks, trying to make the maneuver the left turn around the traffic circle, they would not be able to maneuver that turn, as shown by the conflict in the image between the turning template for the truck and the circle in the middle. As such, what would be proposed as part of this program would be no left turns for trucks only, because they would not be able to maneuver the turn. This now shows the single unit trucks being able to turn in and out of Scofield Drive onto and from Adams Street. So as we took all the turning templates and different engineering analysis into account, on the screen you see what the phase one pilot program, or the traffic circle, the temporary traffic circle concept with stop signs could potentially look like. We'll start by with the traffic circle. The traffic circle would be delineated with striping and would contain in the center of the circle temporary yellow traffic barrels that would be surrounded on an inner circle with epoxy-based delineators. Stop signs and as well as stop pavement markings and limit lines would be installed on Adams Street for both north and southbound approaches, as well as the respective white and yellow roadway striping and red curb markings. One of the important things to note, or two important things to note on the exhibit, are that the required red curb for this alternative would result in a loss of on-street parking of approximately 13 on-street parking spaces. If, in looking at the exhibit, there are red lines marked along both sides of Adams and some on Scofield. Those areas would be red curb and parking would not be allowed. The purpose for this red curb is to be able to delineate the approach traffic closer to the curb so that they would be able to maneuver around the traffic circle, particularly on turning movements. The phase one estimated implementation timeframe, should we move forward with this concept, would be that in February, which is this month, staff would prepare the design work, the work orders, and procure the materials. Implementation of the pilot program could be in late March, And of course, this estimated timeframe is contingent upon weather conditions. We are in rainy season, as well as availability of procured materials. We would then, upon implementing this pilot program, move to the evaluation period, which we are estimating to be somewhere between 6 months to a year. This would provide staff the time to be able to go out and evaluate the pilot program, as well as, again, community to be able to interact with the circle and provide that feedback and get an understanding of the operations. We are also hoping that within that time frame, the COVID-19 situation, the stay-at-home orders either relax further or preferably go back to normal so we can evaluate the traffic circle under normal non-COVID-19 conditions. Upon completion of this evaluation period, we would then have another community outreach and feedback meeting such as tonight to get that additional feedback from the public. Phase 2 is completely contingent on Phase 1, and should we move to that Phase 2, it would involve the installation of a more permanent type of traffic circle that could include a raised curb and some permanent features in the middle of the circle, and as well as installation of a new curb ramp on the west side of Adams Street to allow for a crosswalk to be installed, crossing Adams Street, and the possibility of modifying the existing curb ramps on the east side of Adams Street, depending on whether or not they need to be modified to come up to current ADA standards. Again, these Phase 2 would also include installation of high visibility crosswalks for crossing Adams as well as Scofield Drive, and the stop signs, red curb markings, and truck turning restrictions from Phase 1 would remain in place. The time frame for implementation of Phase 2 is contingent completely on Phase 1. So at this time, we do not have that time frame, but as the project moves forward, should we move to a Phase 2, we would be able to share that information at a later time. This is an exhibit on the screen that shows what the Phase 2 could look like with the permanent features. The circle is depicted in the middle. As you see, there are no traffic barrels or delineators. It would be a more permanent type treatment, possibly with raised curb on the inner circle and a mountable curb delineating the outer circle. I'll mention again, a new curb ramp would be proposed for the west side of Adams Street, and possible modification of the east side curb ramps to bring up to current ADA standards, and as well as installation of high visibility crosswalks. And that concludes the presentation, and we'll be open for questions and comments.
Thank you, Mr. Casanova. And now they will be waiting to see if anybody will make a phone call or have any question or comments. Shay, do we have a caller, please?
Excuse me. Yes, we do have a caller. The first caller is Rondi Werner.
Thank you.
Rondi Werner, go ahead.
Yes, hello. As he said, I'm Rondi Werner. I'm Vice President of the Adams Hill Neighborhood Association. We had requested the proposal in advance so that we could study it and be able to come up with comments, but they refused to provide that, so we're just winging it here. But we appreciate your responsiveness to what this perceived traffic situation is, but eliminating so many parking spaces is just going to make traffic even worse in the neighborhood. There's already a severe shortage of parking, and our streets are so narrow that if there's a car parked on one side, that we have traffic that's oncoming towards each other, which creates a very unsafe situation. And as you may know, many of our streets do not have sidewalks, so pedestrians are put at risk with the more cars that are on these narrow streets. because there's nowhere for them to step out of the street when cars are coming. So Adams at least has a sidewalk on each side, so having the cars there doesn't pose as much of a danger. And also, we're very concerned about how much space this would take doing this traffic circle. Typically, people and I know there's a few other traffic circles in Glendale, but drivers in this area don't really understand how they're supposed to be used. They tend to create a lot of confusion about where you enter and exit them and that kind of thing. So we're inclined to say thanks, but no thanks to this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Do we have a caller, second caller? Okay. We'll wait for the second caller. Meanwhile, please, a friendly reminder for the viewer or the caller that you can view this virtual meeting by connecting or joining the WebEx link at www.glendaleca.gov/Adams. Or you can use the Glendale's YouTube channel at youtube.com/MyGlendale. And for the public or the caller who doesn't have access to the PC or computer, and they can call at the 213-306-3065 with the access code 126-580-3444. And we do have the American Sign Language interpretation, which is primarily available on YouTube's and GTV6. It is really limited access is available on the WebEx. Checking if we have any. Do we have any caller? Shay?
Edward, first off, we have a few questions that came in on YouTube chat you may want to address. The first one is, what is the duration of phase 1? And then, will this be recorded and available for later viewing?
Okay. The first question is the first phase 1, the pilot.
The duration of phase 1. Yeah.
That will be 6 months to a year. It depends on the feedback and public input. But minimum 6 months, within a year should be reasonable enough to evaluate the pilot study. As for the PowerPoint presentation, as well as the YouTube, the audio video, will be available tomorrow on the city website.
Okay, we have a couple more calls.
Okay.
Okay, the next call is Brian Spencer. Go ahead, Brian.
Yes, hi, thank you, and good evening. Really appreciate you listening to our concerns about speed on Adams and addressing the issues of traffic calming. So thank you for that. I do echo the previous caller's concerns about the loss of parking. As an actual resident on Adams, I would see that firsthand. I'm curious, why not just start with the stop signs alone and skip the actual traffic circle? Would there be less impact on parking? Would that be an option?
Any other questions, Brian?
No, thank you.
That's okay. And as mentioned in the presentation, the stop signs are not warranted along that stretch of the street. Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Any next caller, please?
Okay, the next caller is Andy Allison. Andy, go ahead.
Yes, I'm a resident of Adams Hill as well, and I had a couple of questions about the presentation. The first part where you described the multi-way stop consideration, which I guess would be stop signs. You talked about 3 different locations for that, and you said that it didn't meet certain requirements and you had ruled that out, but there weren't any reasons given why it wasn't feasible. I did note for the speed humps, you did note some reasons, including the fire department requirements, why that wasn't feasible. But then when you proposed the traffic circle, the multi-way stop was proposed as well. So I was confused about where it was ruled out initially, but then it was proposed for the traffic circle proposal as well. So just wanted to understand why the stop signs themselves weren't considered feasible in terms of how they adhere to traffic standards or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Pastor, I think that will be able, to address it. That's fine. To clarify why about how we use the standard, the MUTCD with no warrant for the stop sign, we can give some information. Go ahead.
Sure.
Very short.
I'd be glad to clarify that. In the first part where we mentioned that we performed studies at the 3 locations, Cornell, Princeton, and Scofield, for all multi-way stop without the traffic circle, we did follow the California MUTCD guidelines, which include a review of collision history, traffic counts, as well as field data. So we mentioned it did not meet that criteria. There's certain thresholds of traffic volumes that need to be met for both the major street, in this case being Adams, and the side streets. And those volume thresholds were not met. The collisions also, we could consider, fortunately, were not met. There's certain thresholds that if they are met, then the intersection would qualify for multi-way stop, and those were not met either. Now, in the traffic circle pilot program concept, we now propose the multi-way stop at Scofield to address the operational function of the traffic circle in itself. It's important to mention that the traffic circle is not like a roundabout. Roundabouts are usually bigger concepts, bigger areas that allow traffic to traverse the roundabout without stopping. In this case, it's a traffic circle. Really, it's smaller. It's intended to calm traffic, but it's so small that really we need to stop traffic in order to line them up appropriately and be able to maneuver around the intersection. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Casanova. We have any callers?
Yes, we do. The next caller is Patty Silvershare. Patty, go ahead.
Oh, okay. He's still talking.
We hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, should I ask the question now, you mean?
Yes, please. You're on the air.
You're on the air.
Okay. I'm listening to everything about the traffic stop and about the circle, and I want to go back to the speed bumps, because why can't there be a speed bump that is placed in the middle of Adams where the fire trucks, they will not hit the speed bump because they will go over it because they are so much wider than a car. And therefore, the speed bump will absolutely shut the speed down, which they've recognized everywhere we've had speed bumps, including when Los Angeles put them in from York, when Adams changed to York, going towards Verdugo. That's my question. A speed bump that is in the middle of the road, not on each side of the road.
Do you have any other question, Patty? Oh, cut off. Oh, okay. Next caller.
The next caller is Stephen Perkins. Stephen, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I'm also a resident on Adams Street, along the stretch of Adams Street. I strongly support any measure that's going to slow down traffic along the stretch. People routinely drive through here going at least double the speed limit. I've seen many a time where people not only speed, but pass cars going in the same lane as them. It's incredibly dangerous. There are a number of kids that live along the street. So I support whatever measures can stop that. I did have one quick question, though, and it goes back to this idea of a standard multi-stop. I'm unclear why it doesn't meet the criteria for a multi-stop when there already are existing ones on the same stretch of Adams Street at the intersection with Stanford, at the intersection with Aguilar, and at the intersection with Rannans. It's the same street. There's no difference in the street characteristics as far as I can tell. It's the same part of the street. So I'm curious as to why this part doesn't meet the requirements for a stop sign when other parts of Adams have stop signs already. Thank you.
Thanks for your call, Stephen. Any more callers?
The next caller we have is Alec Bartersoff. Go ahead.
Hey, this is Alec. I have been watching the presentation. I did miss the first few minutes, but I wanted to see if there was a way. I mean, it seems like the city is looking for a way to skirt their guidelines and be able to install the stop signs. I'm curious if the city has considered putting in speed tables, which is a much more subtle version of a speed bump. Those are typically on higher volume, higher speed streets. The city of LA is experimenting with them now, and they've installed them in several locations in the city of LA. So I'm wondering if that would be considered. And then the other thing would be to consider mini medians or chokers in the middle of the street to further reduce speed, particularly in the downhill direction. So there are some tools in the toolkit that would reduce speeding, which seems to be the primary concern, without necessarily having to install the stop signs. But I think in theory, it would be that the stop sign would would have the biggest positive impact for the community. So just some things to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Any more callers?
The next caller is Ingrid Wilcox. Go ahead, Ingrid.
Sorry, I was just muting myself. Hello. I just heard what was said about stop signs and at various intersections and meeting particular standards or levels. What I'm curious about is, because I utilize this road all the time, especially coming off the 2 freeway, I witnessed what Los Angeles did in putting crosswalks and stop signs at various junctures leading up to the crest of the hill before it becomes Adams. And that seems to have worked quite well. So what I'm wondering is, because I know part of the issue of the street in general is the ability for emergency vehicles to get through easily, even a smaller traffic circle or modified, whatever you're talking about, still seems to me that becomes problematic. And I'm wondering why an attempt wouldn't be to just create crosswalks and a couple more stop signs once you crest Adams going down to Palmer wouldn't be like the first try, as opposed to going through a larger, more expensive construction process. So that's my question and my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid. Any more callers, Jay?
Yes. The next caller is Laura Guillory. Go ahead, Laura.
Go ahead, Laura.
Oh, yeah. This is Laura Guillory. I guess my first question is, there have been several questions that have been asked. For instance, Patty Silvershire on the speed bump, the other question on the stop sign, but no answers were given. They didn't answer the questions. They just said next question.
Yes, because let me clarify what I said earlier at the beginning of this meeting. We're here to get input, questions, comment from the public, and this is not the time or place to debate or go more into details. However, all your questions will be gathered, collected, and an answer will be provided in the next couple of weeks, will be posted on the city website.
Okay. Then I do have one other question.
Sure.
And my other question has to do with the speed after you pass the stop sign at Stanford Drive, the flashing stop, the traffic, the cars pick up a lot of speed because that's a fairly steep drop on the hill as you're heading towards Chevy Chase. And my question would be, how will the traffic calming affect that? Additionally, many times cars are parked on either side of that block between Stanford and Princeton, which actually blocks visibility for the cars that are coming over the hill. So that's one of the safety issues that I think is not being addressed by the traffic calming plan.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. Do you have any other questions?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next caller is Josh Williams. Go ahead, Josh.
Hi, yes. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was very helpful in understanding the measures that have been taken to study the high speeds of vehicles traveling down the corridor between Stanford and Palmer. I do support any measures that are going to slow speeds down. It looks like the traffic circle is the one that has been landed on based on the investigations that you've proposed. I just wanted to echo some previous callers' questions related to if the traffic circle is going to have the negative impact on parking spaces and additional stop signs, northbound and southbound, are going to be installed as part of the traffic circle. Starting with the stop signs as the City of Los Angeles has done on the other side of the street where Adams becomes York, would seem to be a measure that would have similar impact as it has had there. I've lived here now for over 10 years, and as soon as those stop signs were put in, seemingly under similar traffic pattern conditions, it very much helped the speed of traffic from Verdugo going up the hill to the peak of Adams. So I'd be interested to know if there's any further study that could be done, or if that is a fallback position at all, should the traffic circle be installed in phase one, and instead of moving into phase two as proposed, getting rid of the traffic circle and keeping the stop sign. Thank you for your presentation again.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for the call. Any more callers, hey?
Not right now.
Okay. We'll be waiting for the next caller, if any. If not, we'll close the meeting in 5 minutes from now. Just to remind the public also that there are few ways how to listen, watch, and be part of this committee meetings tonight. And this is just to remind, this is strictly related to the proposed traffic calming measures along Adams Street between Palmer Avenue and Stanford Drive. You can view live by joining the WebEx link at www.glendaleca.gov/Adams. Or you can use Glendale's YouTube channel at youtube.com/MyGlendale. You can also call up at 213-306-3065 and the access code 126-580-3444 if you need to call in and listen to the meeting. We also have the American Sign Language interpretation is primarily available on YouTube and GTV6. Limited access is available on WebEx. And during the presentation, you can call at 818-937-8100. And the information for the public who can have the screen and be able to view the meeting, those information are displayed on the screen. And Shay, do we have any caller? Okay. The call is still available for the next 3 minutes. If there's anybody would have questions or comment would like to meet or share with us, please do so. And just to remind the public again, if you have any comment and questions during this meeting, you can call at 818-937-8100. As well, for the public who has limited or no access to a computer or the internet, please, you can call in at 213-306-3065 3065, access code 126-580-3444. And this is again, this is for the Public Works virtual community meeting for the proposed traffic calming measures along Adams Street between Palmer Avenue and Stanford Drive. And that's live meeting, can be viewed by joining WebEx link at www.glendaleca.gov/Adams or Glendale's YouTube channel at youtube.com/MyGlendale. No callers?
No calls.
Okay. Just 5 more seconds. One caller? Okay. Okay. Okay, Shay.
I don't have one on this system. It's coming up.
It's coming up. Okay. We have one caller, and it will be connected live shortly.
It's Arlen Vidor. Go ahead, Arlen.
Okay. Hi, my name is Arlene Vidor. I'm an Adams Hill resident, and I agree with some of the comments made by folks about this general street. You know, Adams and York is about, they're combined, they're one throughway. It's about 0.8 miles to 1 mile long, and I think we have to consider it as one continuous route all the way from the Adams Square Business District down to the Business District at Verdugo and York, and then on to the 2 freeway. So this is an important throughway, and it seems as though, to me, I traverse it quite a bit, and I've noticed a difference between the LA side, York, and Glendale. I believe that the speed limit on the LA side is posted at 30 miles an hour, which, of course, creates a little bit of a challenge for lead-footed drivers coming up over the hill and into Glendale because the speed limit then changes. So perhaps Glendale and LA can get themselves coordinated with the speed limit. And also in that, there's about a half a mile stretch that's York, and there are 3 individual stop signs on that section of this thoroughfare. One's at Aguiar, one is at Renon, and one is, I think it's Summers. So there's quite a bit of stop sign activity on the LA side. And then, of course, you have a very long stretch once you get up to Stanford all the way down the hill. And so it just seems, for the sake of consistency on this route, that it would be a simple and effective solution to add stop signage rather than a more complex traffic circle. So my vote would be for additional stop sign where necessary, somewhere in between Stanford and Palmer, and forget about the speed bumps, which are very hazardous and potentially damaging, and the traffic circle would not be necessary. So that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arlene. Thank you for your call. Any more calls? Okay. Nope. And just for the benefit of the public who doesn't have access to the computer and see and or view live and hear live the community meetings for proposed traffic calming measures along Adams Street between Palmer Avenue and Stanford Drive, they can call us for the public without computer at the number 213-306-3065, access code 126-580-3444. Those are for the call-in and to listen to the meeting. And during the meetings, or you can call at 818-937-8100. As well as for the public who can view us live and haven't got the information yet on how to join us on the live on the WebEx or the Glendale YouTube. For the WebEx option link, that will be www.glendaleca.gov/Adams or Glendale YouTube channel at youtube.com/MyGlendale, all one word. No callers yet, right?
No calls.
Okay. And please note that this meeting is being recorded, both video and audio, for the public who miss or join this meeting late, and the recording will become a part of the public records. The recording, and as well as the YouTube, will be available tomorrow at the city website. It will be posted at the city website. The public will have the opportunity also to ask questions or send us your comments when the meeting is over. In the next 24 hours, you can email your questions, your comments to the email address that was provided at the postcard, and that will be for the project manager, Mark Bueno, and that will be his email, M like Mary, B like boy, U, E, N, O @glendaleca.gov. Again, this is for the public who would like to send us questions or comment after the meeting. You can email us at M like Mary, B like boy, U like under, E, N like Nancy, O @glendaleca.gov. And this meeting is now officially closed. Thank you for attending and for your calls. It's 7:00 p.m. on February 3rd, 2021. Thank you.